On February 10, 2009, the New York Times reported that NBC News was branching from its controversial canceled show To Catch a Predator to hunt war criminals with similar tactics. Their first target was Rwandan Leopold Munyakazi, a visiting professor at Goucher College in Towson, Maryland. In December, an NBC crew and Rwandan prosecutor confronted Munyakazi with charges of participation in his native country's 1994 genocide. In response to these allegations, Munyakazi said he never participated in genocide, but rather he saved a number of people.
Their money is no good to them anymore. Soon, all the Tutsis will be dead.
You do not honestly believe that you can kill them all?
And why not? Why not? We are halfway there already.
The Rwandan genocide was the 1994 mass killing of thousands of Rwandan Tutsi and Hutu political moderates by those under the Hutu power ideology. Most estimates indicate a death toll up to 1 million people, which is as high as 20% of the Rwandan population. In order to address all angles of this case, we chose to use the Potter box, which was developed by Ralph B. Potter Jr., as it allows us to address all angles of the case. Let's start with the facts. In December, an NBC crew and Rwandan prosecutor Jean Bosco Mutangana confronted Mr. Munyakazi with charges that he had participated in the country's genocide in 1994. Munyakazi vigorously denied the allegations. The Department of Homeland Security had significant concerns with a program like this and said that it could negatively impact law enforcement's ability to investigate and bring cases against the perpetrators of these crimes. Munyakazi is one of at least 4 subjects that NBC News producers focused on in apparent cooperation with the Rwandan government. In response to these events, Kenneth Roth, the executive director of the Human Rights Watch, said, "I was worried that a journalist was making false accusations due to some extent to his close collaboration with the Rwandan government." On the contrary, NBC News said, "Any contact with foreign governments has been consistent with acceptable journalistic practices." However, there was no comment on their news gathering. On December 9th, an NBC film crew began shooting at the Goucher College campus. Later that day, they approached Munyakazi in his classroom after students had left with cameras and microphones. "They were hostile towards me," said Munyakazi. Munyakazi later disputed the Rwandan government's position in a speech.
Munyakazi, who has been suspended with pay and housing through this semester, says he's got a stack of paperwork that proves he didn't participate in the genocide.
This is the document signed by the prosecutor in Rwanda just to release me from jail.
In fact, he says this one actually clears him of any wrongdoing. Munyakazi says even with that, though, all he can do now is wait.
Now for the values of the case. NBC News, as well as other journalists and reporters, should always take into consideration their reputation. Some conflicting aspects that could negatively alter the reputation of reporters and journalists is the use of sensationalism and shock value. According to the book Broadcast Journalism, when there is no good story, the easiest solution is the unethical one, which is to hype a story and blow it out of proportion. Unless the facts are permitted to speak for themselves without embellishment, fact gives way to fiction as the story is inflated until it can stand up as a headline. In NBC's case, they wanted to attract another large audience to increase ratings and viewership, so they used sensationalism and shock value by creating a story about a Rwandan war criminal. In this sense, NBC is guilty of creating a story, rather than reporting it. Another factor that diminished their reputation was their reporting techniques. When NBC went to interview Mr. Munyakazi at his place of work, not only did they do it with a Rwandan official there, but they also ambushed him after class. Not only is ambushing considered unethical, the fact that they brought along a foreign government official showed that their work is not independent from that of government work. Also, in the battle of privacy versus the public's right to know, NBC News is stepping into the realm of privacy, as televising the encounter only seems to appeal to their viewership. Now we will address the principles of the case. Immanuel Kant's categorical imperative states that one should act in such a way that you treat humanity, whether in your own person or in the person of any other, always at the same time as an end and never merely as a means to an end. NBC News was treating Munyakazi as a means to an end, and also allowed themselves to be used as a means for the Rwandan government to persecute Munyakazi. Journalism's code of ethics states that a journalist must always follow 4 guidelines. 1. Seek truth and report it. A journalist should be honest, fair, and courageous in gathering, reporting, and interpreting information. 2. Minimize harm. An ethical journalist should treat sources, subjects, and colleagues as human beings deserving of respect. NBC did not approach Munyakazi with respect, but instead treated him like a criminal and publicly ambushed him. 3. Act independently. A journalist should be free of obligation to any interest other than the public's right to know. NBC did not film Munyakazi to inform the public about a dangerous man, but instead tried to duplicate a popular television show. 4. Be accountable. A journalist should be accountable to their readers, listeners, viewers, and each other. They are not, however, supposed to be accountable for any type of government. As far as loyalties go, in an ethical situation, news media organizations should be loyal to their sources, advertisers, editors, stockholders, and the public. In NBC's case, their loyalty should have lay with Leopold Munyakazi as a source of information, not the Rwandan government. NBC was also being monetarily loyal to their advertisers, editors, and stockholders in going to extremes to create a hit TV show for high ratings. NBC should have been loyal to the public by seeking the truth behind the accusations of genocide through ethical reporting. In partnering with a foreign country, NBC ignored their loyalties to the public emphasized by the Code of Ethics under the principle of acting independently, which states that journalists should be free of obligation to any interest other than the public's right to know. In conclusion, NBC News did not follow the journalistic code of ethics in the case of Mr. Munyakazi. In collaborating with Rwandan government officials to get a story, they did not act independently. As with To Catch a Predator, NBC's intentions were to create a high-rating TV program. NBC used poor reporting techniques in ambushing Mr. Munyakazi and did not seek the full truth before making these accusations. NBC News should have used an ethical procedure, such as the Potter box, to see morally significant factors in their actions. They should have sought real facts, examined their values as journalists, reporters, and a company, examined ethical principles such as Kant's categorical imperative, and considered with whom their loyalties lie, and act accordingly to minimize the most harm.